Inspiration. Most games are born from it. A few are even truly inspiring. Our goal with Dark Harmony is to use a myriad of dynamic systems as tools of inspiration for our players. Imagine, if you will, a game dedicated to player interaction where every action is met by instantaneous feedback. Dark Harmony is a game at its core about overcoming darkness and despair. Our protagonist, DeVito, is a struggling pianist who is balanced on the knife's edge of depression. In an effort to battle his personal demons, he becomes self-absorbed in his music. This unique coping mechanism is revealed to the player once DeVito finds himself trapped inside a dark piano. His primary mission is to try and restore the source of his inspiration through rescuing the mannequins. These mannequins act as bouts of inspiration for DeVito, granting him new tools to overcome obstacles during his journey. Once all mannequins have been restored, DeVito is able to come to terms with his inner darkness and free himself from the piano realm. Along the way, he will encounter various types of enemies, known as shades, which are physical manifestations of his self-doubt. In addition to these lesser foes, the player will also encounter special enemies, known as wraiths. These unique area bosses have to be defeated in order to obtain the mannequin and restore the inspiration they represent. To tie all of these elements together, we've implemented a complex and ever-evolving network of dynamic systems, to include combat, lighting, music, and level design. We'll be discussing each of these in depth shortly. Before we get too deep into the mechanics, though, we need to take a step back and lay a bit of foundation. Dark Harmony is currently being designed as a frantically paced, top-down action game with a strong emphasis on exploration and resource management. Our target platform right now is the PC, with a plan to market to the Steam and Epic Games Store. Building upon our foundation, our core theme is music and how it affects the player. Music is at the core of how DeVito defends against shades and how he recovers his vitality. Our innovative combat system allows the player to weaponize the flow of music in a rhythm-based attack sequence. The player will need to time each of their interactions with the rhythm of the soundtrack in order to achieve each ability's full effect. For example, in the game Crypt of the Necrodancer, players move and perform actions timed with the rhythm of the background music. Our music-based combat system was designed as an evolution of the system used in this clip, bringing turn-based, rhythmic attacks into a real-time action genre. We will be delving more into the specifics of our combat system next, as we cover some of our more foundational mechanics. Movement is, of course, the foundation of any modern game. We use a fairly standard WASD configuration and are planning a movement to be crisp and responsive. Building off of movement, players explore to find various music boxes that have been scattered throughout the level for the player to interact with. These boxes contain the musical notes that fuel the player and all of their abilities. Each music box has a small, safe area and checkpoint, where the player can time their inputs with the song, channeling notes into DeVito. In order to keep our players engaged, we implemented a system to drain the player's notes as time progresses. This adds a sense of urgency to each mission and requires them to manage their resources more carefully. As players collect notes, his companion, Aurora, casts a circular light field that increases in size and intensity around DeVito. Due to this, the field also replaces the standard use of a health bar, without having to clutter the player with any extra UI elements. To round out his defensive capabilities, the light field also slows enemies who enter it. To supplement the player's defensive capabilities, DeVito has a range of offensive capabilities. The core of DeVito's attacks is his cacophony. Playing various notes off the piano around him, he's able to deal with different types of enemies. Each of his attacks has a different effect on his enemies, allowing the player to tackle combat in their own unique method. Each attack will cost the player a set amount of notes. If, however, the attacks are well timed with background music, DeVito may recover some spent notes. This allows more skilled players to be rewarded by reducing the cost of their skills, or even getting some attacks for free. Once the player has gained enough notes, they will be eligible for a special attack called Discordia. Aurora will help the player out in combat by unleashing a powerful burst of light that will illuminate the level for a short period of time and destroy most weaker enemies at the cost of a huge number of notes. The duration of this attack can be extended by players who time the inputs with the rhythm. This channeled ability will shorten with each beat, creating a gap between high and low skilled players. In order to allow for lower skill-based players to enjoy the game, each level will include enough notes for at least one use of Discordia. To help keep our game feeling fresh and engaging, we have included some adaptive enemies into our mix. In order to keep things a little more succinct, we will only be covering two of our featured enemies. The Shade is a floating disembodied head that will fly at the player and attempt to deplete their notes through their light field. These will usually attack the player en masse and attempt to overwhelm them. Currently, we have 3 different shades in development, each of which offer unique challenges. A second enemy of note is the Wraith. While the shade represents DeVito's self-doubt, the Wraith are DeVito's depression incarnate. These special enemies act as the final barrier between the mannequin the player is trying to save and the end of the level. These dark, shadowy monsters will each be tailored uniquely to create a memorable challenge for each level. If the player should find themselves overcome with enemies, or they run out of notes, there must be consequences. It would be easy to develop the plug another quarter mentality, but we wanted to do something a little different. In Dark Harmony, there is no true game over. Each death is a learning experience for the player. If they are overwhelmed in combat, they will find themselves back at the start of the level with only 25% of their total notes remaining. This allows the player to explore and recover notes until they are able to overcome the challenges that defeated them. As they wait to tie combat and exploration together, we have also included several items scattered about the recesses of the level that allow the player an edge in combat. These will modify DeVito's abilities both in combat, as well as in navigation and exploration. As you can see, many of our mechanics tie back into our core theme of music. We feel that it is paramount that our musical inspirations were developed around the use of a piano, as the player is trapped inside of one. The music starts very slow and is created to make the player feel anxious. Over time, as DeVito gains inspiration and self-confidence, the music starts to pick up and is created to make the player feel inspired. During combat, the background music will swell up to the foreground and all other sounds will be reduced to the background. Music boxes will also produce a delicate tone as the player channels notes. As aforementioned, with the game taking place inside a piano, these environments in Dark Harmony are meant to reflect DeVito's feelings of solitude and directionlessness. As the player progresses deeper into the game, the environments begin to shift to reflect a change in DeVito's emotional state. After a certain point in the game, when the player gains sufficient inspiration, the levels will begin to open up and become more spacious. With this change, DeVito will be able to see further, and as such, be able to take on more enemies simultaneously. With such influences as Tim Burton's character design in the film The Corpse Bride, as well as his choice of the color palette, we have taken a dark but whimsical approach to our art style. DeVito is made to look tired and well-worn, while Aurora is made to look fresh and healthy. This contrast is made to show how she is the visible representation of DeVito's inspiration, while the Wraiths are made to look very dark and threatening. This is done to illustrate that these shades are a manifestation of his depression made real. Due to the use of darkness as a design mechanic, there is no light other than that which comes off of Aurora and from the music boxes. Aurora's light radius will grow as the player continues the game. This is to show how the darkness that was once his depression is being replaced by the light that is his own inspiration. On screen is a clip from some pre-alpha gameplay showcasing the aesthetics of our game. Dark Harmony has been designed from the ground up with a focus on player movement, lighting, music, and combat, all relying on a complex and ever-evolving system specifically designed to react to players. We know that with your help, we can create a game that will inspire millions of people all around the world. It has been an amazing journey to handcraft every detail of this game, with the hope of bringing real change to those who may be battling with their own inner darkness. Dark Harmony has been designed from the ground up with a focus on player movement, lighting, music, and combat, all relying on a complex and ever-evolving system specifically designed to react to players. We know that with your help, we can create a game that will inspire millions of people all around the world. It has been an amazing journey to handcraft every detail of this game, with the hope of bringing real change to those who may be battling with their own inner darkness. Thank you for your time, Blue Falcon Games, and we look forward to working closely with you in the near future.